When I was 29 years old, I bought my first home after years of working double shifts, skipping vacations and living in a tiny apartment. It wasn't a mansion, it was a modest, 3-bedroom house with a small garden and a front porch where I dreamed of drinking coffee every morning. Every brick represented years of sacrifice. My parents praised me at first, telling relatives how proud they were of their hardworking daughter. My younger brother, Daniel, had always lived differently. He changed jobs every few months, borrowed money without paying it back, and believed life would somehow work itself out. Whenever he got into trouble, my parents rushed to rescue him. They called him the baby of the family, even though he was 32 years old. I never complained. I believed everyone had their own path. One Friday afternoon, I stopped by my parents' house after work. I walked into the dining room and immediately noticed they were strangely cheerful. "We've got wonderful news," my mother said. I smiled. "Really? What happened?" My father leaned back proudly. "Daniel and his girlfriend are expecting a baby." "That's amazing," I replied honestly. Then my mother added something that made my heart stop. "We've decided your house is perfect for them." I laughed because I thought it was a joke, but my father spoke calmly. "Daniel needs stability now. A child deserves a proper home." I stared at him. "My house?" "Yes," Mom nodded. "You're single, you don't need all that space." For several seconds I couldn't even speak. "I bought that house, we know I pay the mortgage exactly." Dad answered, "You're financially responsible. You'll manage somewhere else." I thought maybe I was misunderstanding. "So you're asking if Daniel can stay there?" They exchanged confused looks. "No," my mother said. "We're telling you family helps family." I felt my stomach twist. "You don't own my house." Dad frowned. "Don't be selfish." Selfish, that single word echoed in my head all the way home. The next morning, I found Daniel measuring my backyard with a tape measure. "What are you doing?" he grinned. "Planning where the baby's swing set will go." "You actually think you're moving in?" He shrugged. "Mom already gave us permission." "You mean she gave you my permission?" He laughed. "Same thing." I realized then that none of them respected me at all. Over the next week, my parents kept calling. "When are you moving your furniture? You should start apartment hunting. You don't need such a big place." Every conversation assumed I had already agreed. I stopped arguing instead. I called a real estate agent. "How quickly can this house sell?" She looked surprised. "In this market, probably within a week if you price it correctly."
Perfect within 3 days.
Photographers came by. The weekend, the listing went live. 2 days later, I received 3 offers. One family offered cash. I accepted immediately. The closing date was scheduled faster than anyone expected. I told no one, not my parents, not Daniel, not even my closest friends. I wanted the paperwork completed before anyone tried to interfere. On the morning of closing, I signed every document with a smile. The money landed in my account. That afternoon, the house officially belonged to a lovely, young couple with twin daughters. I rented a beautiful apartment across town while deciding where I wanted to buy next. 3 days later, my phone exploded. 30 missed calls. Dozens of text messages. Daniel was furious. "Where are the keys?" I finally answered. "What keys?" "The house." "Oh, silence." I sold it. Another long silence. "You what? I sold my house." "You can't do that. I already did. Our furniture is in the truck. I'm sure you'll figure something out." He started screaming. Mom grabbed the phone. "How could you betray your own family?" "I betrayed you. You knew Daniel needed that house." "I needed it too. But you're single and you can start over." I laughed softly. "So can Daniel." Dad took over. "We already promised everyone he'd be living there. That sounds like your mistake. You embarrassed us." "No. You embarrassed yourselves by giving away something that never belonged to you." The call ended with Dad shouting that I wasn't his daughter anymore. For weeks, relatives bombarded me with angry messages. "Family comes first. You should have sacrificed." "Money isn't everything," I responded with the same sentence every time. It wasn't their house to give away. Most stopped replying after that. About a month later, my aunt invited me to lunch. She quietly admitted something shocking. "Your parents told everyone they had helped you buy that house." I nearly choked on my drink. "They said it was basically theirs because they supported you. Emotionally. Not financially, not legally. Emotionally. That's how they justified giving away property they didn't own." Word eventually spread about what had actually happened. My cousins learned I had paid every dollar myself. My uncle confronted my father during a family barbecue. "You tried to steal your own daughter's house." The room fell silent. Dad couldn't answer. Several relatives began distancing themselves from my parents. After hearing the truth, even Daniel's girlfriend wasn't happy. She later called to apologize. "I didn't know your parents never asked you. They told me the house belonged to the family. It never did." A few months later, she left Daniel after realizing he expected everyone else to solve his problems. As for me, I used the money from the sale, along with my savings, to purchase an even better home in another city. This time I never shared the address with my parents. When they eventually asked where I lived, I simply smiled. "I'm somewhere no one can give away." Years have passed since then. My relationship with my parents has never fully recovered. Sometimes people ask whether I regret selling the house. Not for a second, because the day I sold it wasn't the day I lost my family. It was the day I discovered they had stopped treating me like family. Long before that, a home is more than walls and a roof. It's a place built with effort, sacrifice, and respect. Anyone who believes they can hand your hard-earned future to someone else without your permission doesn't value you. They value what you can provide. Selling that house wasn't an act of revenge. It was an act of self-respect. And sometimes protecting your peace means closing one door, so a better one can finally open. My parents spent years telling everyone that I had overreacted, but the truth had a way of finding its own path. After I moved into my new home, life became peaceful for the first time in years. I decorated every room exactly the way I wanted, planted flowers in the backyard, and enjoyed the simple comfort of knowing that no one could take away what I had earned. One evening, I received an unexpected phone call from my cousin Emily. "Have you heard what happened?" she asked. "No." "What now? Daniel lost another job." I sighed. It wasn't surprising. He had bounced from one job to another for years, always expecting someone else to rescue him whenever things went wrong. A few weeks later, my mother called. Her voice was softer than it had been in months. "We need to talk." I agreed to meet them at a small cafe. When I arrived, my parents looked older than I remembered. My father avoided eye contact, while my mother nervously stirred her coffee. Finally, Dad spoke. "We made mistakes." I stayed silent. "We thought helping Daniel was the right thing to do." "It wasn't helping," I replied calmly. "It was enabling." Neither of them argued because they knew I was right. My mother wiped away a tear. "We lost him too." I frowned. "What do you mean?" "He blames us for everything now. He says we never gave him enough." The irony was impossible to ignore. After years of giving him money, excuses, and endless second chances, he still believed the world owed him more. Dad looked at me. "We should have treated both of our children fairly." Those were words I had waited years to hear. "I didn't want your house," he continued quietly. "I wanted Daniel to finally become responsible. Instead, we taught him that everything would always be handed to him." For the first time in a long while, I saw genuine regret in his eyes. I accepted the apology, but forgiveness didn't mean returning to the way things had been. Trust, once broken, takes much longer to rebuild. Over the following months, we slowly started speaking again. The conversations were polite but careful. They no longer asked about my finances, my home, or my plans. They had finally learned that my life wasn't theirs to manage. As for Daniel, he eventually reached out with a short message. "I was angry because I thought you owed me." I replied with only one sentence. "I never owed you what I worked for." He didn't answer, but I hoped he understood. Looking back, I realized the biggest lesson wasn't about selling a house. It was about setting boundaries. Family should support your dreams, not claim ownership over them. Love should never require sacrificing your dignity or giving away everything you've built. That experience changed me forever. I became more confident, more independent, and less afraid to say the word no. It wasn't easy, but it was necessary. Sometimes people mistake kindness for weakness. They believe that because you've always helped before, you'll continue helping no matter how unfair the situation becomes. But real kindness has limits, and healthy boundaries protect both your peace and your future. Today, when I unlock the front door of my home, I don't just see walls and furniture. I see every overtime shift, every sacrifice, every difficult decision that made it possible. Most importantly, I see a reminder that self-respect is worth more than anyone's approval. My parents eventually learned that lesson the hard way. Daniel had to learn it on his own. And I learned that the strongest foundation any home can have isn't concrete. It's the courage to stand up for yourself when no one else will.